When I say mindset shapes reality, I'm not talking about wishful thinking, and I'm not talking about blind optimism where you close your eyes and hope life turns out okay. What I'm talking about is a posture of the heart and the mind that actually informs the way you live, the way you respond, and ultimately the way outcomes unfold in your life. You see, the world does not simply happen to us. We participate in it, we engage with it, and the spirit in which we do so has a profound impact on what we experience. Think about this. Two people can face the same circumstance, the same difficulty, the same closed door, and yet one walks away defeated while the other finds a way through. What's the difference? It isn't always talent, it isn't always education, and it isn't always resources. More often than not, it's mindset. The way you frame reality in your own mind determines the way you step into it. If you approach life already assuming defeat, then you'll confirm that defeat through your choices. But if you step into life carrying the belief that somehow, some way, things will work out in your favor, then you begin to move differently. You start to see possibilities that others miss. You recognize opportunities where others only see obstacles, and you carry yourself with a confidence that cannot be faked. Philosophers have long wrestled with the question of perception versus reality. The Stoics, for instance, taught that it's not the events themselves that disturb us, but our judgment about those events. In other words, the raw facts of life are neutral. It's the meaning we assign to them that determines our emotional response and our next action. Modern psychology echoes the same truth. Cognitive behavioral science demonstrates that our thought patterns shape not only our emotions, but also our behaviors, which then feed back into the results we experience. The loop begins in the mind and it ends in reality. So when you act as if everything will work out, you're not denying the presence of difficulty, you're choosing to interpret it differently. You're saying, this situation may be challenging, but it's not final. This door may be closed, but it's not the only door. This storm may be fierce, but it will pass and I will still be standing. That mindset doesn't erase the storm, but it changes the way you endure it. And more importantly, it changes what you see on the other side. Now let's be honest, life will test this mindset. You'll face seasons when nothing seems to move forward, when the doors don't just close, they slam. And in those moments, the temptation is to conclude that your optimism was misplaced, that your belief was naive. But that's when the mindset matters most. Because resilience is not built in the easy seasons, it is forged in the hard ones. Acting as if things will work out is a declaration of faith, but it's also a strategy. It keeps you moving, it keeps you knocking on doors, it keeps you building and creating when everything in you wants to sit down and give up. And here's the beauty of it. When you live with this posture long enough, the evidence begins to accumulate. You start to notice that the very problems you thought would break you actually shaped you. You begin to see that the detours life forced on you led to destinations you never would have reached otherwise. And over time, your belief becomes less of a theory and more of a testimony. You can look back over your life and say with confidence, things didn't always go my way, but somehow they worked out for my good. This is why the mindset matters. It's not about pretending life is perfect. It's about stepping into each day with a lens that expects meaning, growth, and eventual good to come out of even the most difficult circumstances. Because expectation shapes perception, perception shapes decisions, and decisions shape destiny. So the challenge I want to leave with you in this moment is simple but profound. Decide what story you're going to tell yourself about your life. Decide whether you're going to see every obstacle as the end of the road or as a bend in the road. Decide whether you're going to let your fears dictate your reality or your faith inform your reality. Because at the end of the day, the world will often mirror back to you the mindset you carry into it. Carry defeat and you'll see defeat everywhere. Carry hope and you'll find hope in the most unlikely places. Carry the belief that things will work out and you'll begin to notice how often they actually do. So let me say it plainly, the way you think about your life is the way you will live your life. Change the lens and you change the view and you change the outcome. That's the power of mindset. And that's why if you want to live fully, you must begin by acting as if everything always works out for you. Would you like me to carry this same style forward for all 6 key points so the entire speech feels like one seamless delivery? When we talk about shifting from fear to faith, we are really talking about a fundamental redirection of the heart and mind. Fear and faith are both invisible forces. You can't touch them, you can't hold them in your hands, but you can see their effects everywhere. Fear paralyzes, faith mobilizes. Fear shrinks your vision, faith expands it. Fear says, what if it doesn't work? Faith says, what if it does? And the one you choose to live by will determine the path you walk. Now, let's be clear, fear is not always irrational. Fear shows up when something feels uncertain, when the outcome is unpredictable, when the stakes are high. That's part of being human. But here's the problem: if you allow fear to run the show, it becomes a lens that distorts everything. You stop taking risks. You stop reaching out. You stop believing that better is possible because fear whispers that safety is the only option. But the truth is, playing it safe is often the most dangerous thing you can do because nothing great, nothing transformative, nothing lasting was ever built on fear. Faith on the other hand, is not a reorientation of trust. It says, yes, the future is uncertain, but I trust that stepping forward will lead me somewhere meaningful. Faith is not the absence of facts. It is the decision to live as though life itself leans in your favor, even when you can't yet see the proof. Faith allows you to act as if the resources will show up, as if the right connections will appear, as if the effort you invest will bear fruit in time. Psychologists tell us that fear activates the amygdala, the survival center of the brain. It triggers fight, flight, or freeze responses that can be useful in moments of danger, but destructive when applied to the broader journey of life. Faith, however, engages the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that imagines possibilities, weighs long-term rewards, and makes visionary decisions. In simple terms, fear locks you into the present moment of panic, while faith frees you to see beyond the immediate to the potential of what could be. But this isn't just brain science, it's philosophy and spirituality too. Throughout history, the greatest teachers, from the Stoics to theologians, have reminded us that fear chains us to what we can't control, while faith liberates us to focus on what we can. Marcus Aurelius said, our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or our dispositions. In other words, external circumstances are outside our hands, but the posture of our spirit is always ours to choose. Let me give you a picture. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff with a bridge stretched across a canyon. The bridge is old, weathered, maybe even a little shaky. Fear keeps you frozen at the edge, calculating every possible way the bridge could collapse. Faith steps forward not because it denies the risk, but because it trusts that the bridge was built to carry you, and that the other side holds something worth reaching. Life often feels like that crossing, and if you wait for perfect certainty before you move, you'll never move at all. I'm not suggesting faith makes the journey easy. Faith doesn't guarantee smooth roads or painless outcomes, but faith guarantees movement. It guarantees that you won't stay stuck where you are. And movement, progress, growth, resilience comes only when you refuse to let fear decide for you. The irony is, the very act of choosing faith often produces the outcomes that fear told you were impossible. You take the risk, and suddenly the opportunity appears. You make the call, and the connection is made. You step forward, and the ground rises up to meet your feet. It's not magic, it's the principle of alignment. When you act as if the universe is working with you rather than against you, you begin to see doors that you never noticed before. And here's the truth, many people miss fear and faith are both acts of imagination. Fear imagines the worst, faith imagines the best. Fear says tomorrow is filled with pitfalls. Faith says tomorrow is filled with possibility. The question is, which imagination will you allow to dominate your reality? Because whichever you lean into will grow stronger, and whichever you neglect will weaken. So the challenge is this: starve your fears and feed your faith. Starve your fears by refusing to rehearse disaster over and over in your mind. Feed your faith by rehearsing victory, rehearsing peace, rehearsing the belief that no matter what comes, you will be equipped to handle it. Shift your inner dialogue from what if it all falls apart to what if it all comes together? Because in the end, fear imprisons, but faith empowers. Fear locks you out of your own potential, but faith hands you the keys to a bigger life. Fear will always point you to retreat, but faith will always call you to advance. So let me leave you with this: you cannot live fully if you are ruled by fear, and you cannot step into your destiny without faith. Choose to trust that the path ahead, though uncertain, is worth walking. Let your faith be louder than your fear. That choice, the shift from fear to faith, will change not just the way you see the world, but the way the world unfolds before you. Would you like me to expand key point 3 next in the same style so the entire speech continues to build seamlessly? Resilience is one of those qualities we admire in others but often struggle to recognize in ourselves. Yet resilience is not something you're either born with or without. It is cultivated. It is forged in the fires of disappointment, failure, and delay. And this is where acting as if becomes more than a phrase. It becomes a survival strategy. Because setbacks are not optional in life, they are inevitable. The only question is whether those setbacks will define you or refine you. When life pushes back, when doors close, when opportunities evaporate, the natural instinct is to shrink, to retreat, to say, well, maybe this wasn't meant for me. But if you carry the mindset that things will somehow work out, you meet setbacks differently. Instead of final chapters, they become plot twists. Instead of signs to quit, they become signals to adjust. Instead of an ending, they become a pause that precedes a new beginning. Think about the greatest breakthroughs in history. They are rarely the product of smooth, uninterrupted progress. Thomas Edison tested thousands of materials before creating a working light bulb. Nelson Mandela endured decades in prison before emerging as a leader who could unify a fractured nation. Even in our own lives, the moments that shaped us most deeply were often the ones we least wanted to endure at the time. Resilience is born in those very moments when you refuse to let failure have the final word. Now, what does it mean to act as if during a setback? It doesn't mean you ignore reality. It doesn't mean you smile through pain or pretend that disappointment doesn't sting. No, it means you acknowledge the setback while still holding on to the conviction that the story is not over. It means you let the difficulty inform you, but you don't let it imprison you. It means you say to yourself, yes, this hurt me, but it didn't end me. Yes, this slowed me down, but it didn't stop me. Psychologically, this is powerful. Researchers call it cognitive reframing. The way you interpret negative events directly impacts how you recover from them. People who frame setbacks as permanent, pervasive, and personal, this always happens, it affects everything, and it's all my fault, are far more likely to stay stuck. But people who reframe setbacks as temporary, specific, and external, but this happened, but it's not forever. It affects this one part of my life, not the whole, and while I play a role, it's not entirely my fault, are far more likely to recover quickly and move forward. In other words, resilience isn't just about bouncing back physically, it's about how you think in the middle of the storm. Philosophically, resilience is an act of defiance. It's looking at reality and saying, you may have knocked me down, but you cannot keep me down. It's aligning yourself with the deep conviction that life bends toward growth, that human beings are wired not just to survive, but to overcome. It's a kind of inner rebellion against despair. And here's the truth, setbacks are not detours from the path. They are part of the path. We don't grow despite them, we grow through them. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without pressure, there is no diamond. Without storms, there is no depth of root. The very things we wish away are often the things that shape us into people capable of carrying greater responsibility, greater vision, and greater impact. Let me make it plain. Acting as if everything always works out doesn't mean everything always goes your way. It means you live with the assurance that even what goes wrong can be worked into something right. It means you understand that setbacks are setups for lessons you needed, for strength you hadn't built, for opportunities you couldn't see until you were forced to stop and look in a new direction. So when the setback comes, and it will, don't let it silence your movement. Keep showing up. Keep making the call. Keep writing the plan. Keep believing that something is happening in the unseen, even if you can't yet measure it in the seen. Because resilience is not just about recovering what was lost. It's about discovering what can still be gained. And here's the paradox, the very act of choosing resilience builds more resilience. Every time you get back up, you prove to yourself that you can. Every time you refuse to quit, you expand your capacity for perseverance. Over time, resilience stops being something you do in moments of crisis. It becomes part of who you are. So the next time life tells you no, I want you to remember this. That no is never the final verdict unless you decide it is. Resilience says, I hear the no, but I'm still moving toward my eyes. Because setbacks do not get the last word unless you give it to them. And if you live with the conviction that everything will somehow work out, then even your setbacks become setups for a stronger comeback. That is the power of resilience. And that is why, when life pushes you down, the greatest act of faith you can demonstrate is to stand back up. Would you like me to move forward and expand key point 4 in the same way? So the entire speech keeps its rhythm and builds toward a climax. One of the most fascinating truths about life is that what you carry on the inside has a way of showing up on the outside. The mindset you hold, the energy you give off, the confidence you project, it all creates a kind of magnetic field around you. And this is why acting as if everything always works out is not just a personal comfort, it's a social strategy. It attracts opportunities, it draws people in. It sets in motion a chain of events that would never have unfolded if you had stayed stuck in fear, defeat, or hesitation. People are drawn to certainty. They may not articulate it, but they feel it. When you walk into a room with a presence that says, I believe things will align in my favor, people respond differently to you. They want to work with you. They want to help you. They want to connect with you. Why? Because confidence breeds confidence. People trust what you trust. And when you carry yourself as if things will work out, others begin to see that as possible too, and they want to be a part of it. Now, let's be careful here. This isn't about arrogance or pretending to have it all together. It's not about puffing up your chest and demanding the universe bend to your will. No, it's about alignment. It's about living in such a way that your inner expectation spills outward into your actions, your words, your tone, your decisions. And that alignment creates resonance. Just like a tuning fork vibrates and causes another instrument to the same note to vibrate as well, your expectation has a way of setting others into motion. Psychologists talk about the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's the idea that what you expect often becomes what you experience, not because the world magically changes, but because your behavior changes. If you expect rejection, you walk into relationships closed off, hesitant, defensive, and sure enough, rejection finds you. If you expect failure, you cut corners, play small, and confirm your own belief. But if you expect opportunity, you lean forward, you try harder, you stay alert. And guess what? You begin to see doors you never noticed before. That's the magnetic power of expectation. Philosophically, this connects to a deeper truth. Human beings are not just passive observers of reality. We are participants in its unfolding. We shape it, influence it, and color it with the spirit we carry into it. When you act as if everything always works out, you are not denying reality. You are shaping it. You are walking in agreement with possibility instead of surrendering to limitation. and the world responds to that agreement. Think about some of the people who have inspired you most in life. They weren't always the most talented or the wealthiest or the most educated, but they carried a presence, a belief, a conviction that seemed to attract opportunity to them. Their faith in their own journey drew collaborators, mentors, resources, and platforms into their orbit. And that wasn't coincidence, it was attraction. This is why it's so important to keep acting as if even when circumstances don't reflect it yet, because your posture plants seeds in the environment around you, seeds of trust, seeds of opportunity, seeds of connection. And just like seeds in the soil, they don't sprout the same day you plant them. But if you keep showing up with the right expectation, eventually the fruit appears. But let me warn you, opportunity is shy. It doesn't reveal itself to the fearful, the hesitant, or the defeated. Opportunity gravitates toward those who are already moving, already believing, already preparing. It's like a spotlight that shines on those who have decided, long before the breakthrough comes, to live as though it's inevitable. That's the paradox. Acting as if attracts what you're acting toward. And let's not forget, this isn't just about career success or material gain. Opportunities come in the form of relationships, wisdom, peace, and purpose. When you live with expectation, you notice the friend who could become family, the challenge that could become a lesson, the detour that could become a destiny. You don't just attract what you want, you attract what you are aligned with. So the question becomes, what energy are you putting into the world? Are you radiating defeat, always waiting for the next shoe to drop? Or are you radiating belief, living with a presence that says, somehow, some way, it will work out for me? Because whichever you project will determine what gravitates toward you. You don't have to chase opportunity when you carry this kind of mindset. Opportunities will start chasing you. Doors will open. People will remember your name. Connections will surface at just the right time. Not because of luck, but because your alignment called them into being. So let me close this moment with a challenge. Stop asking, what if nothing works out? And start asking, what if everything does? Walk into every room, every relationship, every challenge with that posture. Because when you live in expectation, opportunity finds you. Carry the conviction that life is working with you, not against you, and watch how the world begins to respond in your favor.